how do we resolve this? People are shrugging their shoulders, and so if one of you can ask me, how do we resolve this? How do we take care of this? And I'll jump into that, and maybe you have a couple of tiny little questions along the way,
at the end.
And Mike, the only thing that I request from you is think of a song you'd like me to play during the break, and I can add that in.
Oh no, I'll sing it for you.
Okay. Okay, guys.
I got a couple of favorite ones. Bob Marley Redemption Song. There's a lot of renditions of that I use with mine, and the other one is an old tune that resonated with me when I was very young, because I actually ran into these guys on the streets of Berkeley when I was like 10 years old, and that's 10 years after I'd Love to Change the World.
Oh yeah, good song.
Yeah. It doesn't exactly speak my mind, but it speaks the confusion and inability to resolve, and that's why it's important to me. But that's one of my favorite all-time tunes as pertains to this. So anyway, I'll let you go, Ann. So with that, we resumed the regular interview. Well, as William brought it up during the break here, that he mentioned the controversy that was purposely caused by the banking system in the late 1800s and early 1900s, leading up to the unwarranted creation of the Federal Reserve. And we dove into that at Andrew Jackson. Of course, I'm not, the first person to draw all this history together, but the history that others had drawn together, I presented it as not as an argument so much, but an evidence of things which we don't understand unless we understand this two-part thesis that I've just introduced of inherent inevitable monetary failure, and B, of singular solution in mathematically perfected economy. Mathematically perfected economy is the only prescription which maintains a perpetual one-to-one-to-one relationship between remaining circulation, remaining value of represented property, and remaining obligation, which is what cements conviction to the value of the currency. The people actually become the police of the system. They say, "Oh, well, I didn't get that much for my money, when I was working. I'm now retired. Therefore, I'm not going to pay that kind of price. That's ridiculous." You become the police agent, and your interest in maintaining value allows the people in the only true free markets to perpetuate the values as they always understood them in mathematically perfected economy, of course, because it eliminates all extrinsic or redundant costs, and therefore, of course, is the only economy. But because it eliminates all extrinsic or redundant cost or exploitation, and because the natural evolution of industry is to produce more efficiently, in truth, costs should go down. And mathematically perfected economy, of course, allows that to happen. In any case, the history of economy is really quite interesting, because only in respect, frankly, I think it's boring. If we only were taught what we were in school, and of course, I wasn't taught any of these things in school. I perceived them myself. And this is something that anyone who is a critical thinker and says, no, that's not true. How could that possibly be true? Show me how it's true. And the person goes, blah, blah, blah. They have no answer. And yet you saw it wasn't true because you could see how it isn't true, and then you explain, well, that couldn't be true because this is the case, you see, and then they go, well, and then they try and hide under a rock, or they throw another lie at you, or another curve of some kind, or try to be evasive or egotistical or intimidating, and they're full of it, and and that's that can't serve you, and anyone who's intending to deceive you is doing it for motives which don't serve you. So anyway, the thing about this monetary history, it's very interesting in biblical record. It's very interesting. I've traced it back in different areas of the world. One area that in history that I was most interested in is ancient Egypt, and I actually believe that there may have been a man in ancient Egypt. His name was Imhotep. His life is very much like Jesus Christ. He was a healer. He's reported to have even performed brain surgeries. We don't know where he came from. He appeared suddenly. He's the inventor of building with stone under the pharaoh Zoser. He's the inventor of all the modern sciences, higher math, trigonometry, geometry. In fact, what we call the Pythagorean theorem was actually probably authored by Imhotep. He built 500, I believe, astronomical observatories during his lifetime, which were instrumental in determining all the Earth and spatial dimensions which are incorporated in the design of the Great Pyramid. I believe he was the designer of the Great Pyramid. I believe he may have trained another man, Rahotep, in the construction methods of the Great Pyramid, and so after Imhotep's life, this other person would have overseen the construction of the Great Pyramid. And I believe that Imhotep, as I said, may have developed mathematically perfected economy. Now, the evidence of that is so obscure that you couldn't possibly even tell it was evidence of such a thing, unless you understood this thesis of inevitable failure and singular solution. Now, so I trace a possibility, and it's a long shot. It's really a long shot. That Imhotep may have developed such a thing as mathematically perfected economy back then, but there's no real evidence of mechanics or that monetary issues were resolved in the same way that I have reduced their mechanics to exactly what they have to be. But it's only possible that such thinking existed by the remotest, scantest evidence. It may be a fact, it never happened. I have no actual evidence that it happened. And so, in truth, people think that, they understand, that interest is adverse to us, and that it's terminal even, and that money can't be subject to interest. But, none of this thinking was anywhere. When I started out, and it's been my papers. Interest is usury, which since 1979 is a mathematic proof that there's no distinguishing factor or delineation between what we call interest and usury. And in fact, you can understand why the word has been obfuscated to Christians in Christian dictionaries around the world. the word interest was devised, where the word usury was the term, the predominant term before. And the obfuscated definition of interest is that some ostensibly legal rate of interest is somehow legitimate, but it doesn't say how it's legitimate. And if you dig and dig and dig, you won't find any proof that there's a somehow legitimate form of interest. And after all, if all this depends on this obfuscation of the promissory obligation, how can it be possible that a mere publisher of evidence of our promissory obligations charge interest at all? And what is the rate of interest? If you're paying, $2 to issue $100,000 into circulation, and then that person pays $300,000 in interest on that, that $300,000 of interest relates to a $2 cost. What is the rate of interest? You see? So all this is about lies, and of course it's about lies which, for Christians, make it more palatable to pay interest instead of usury, which is forbidden by Scripture. Likewise, for Islam, what's been done to dictionaries relating to Islam is the word riba has been obfuscated into a term which means rent. So instead of charging interest, they made it rent for Islam. But so Islamic banking is not an abidance by Islamic law. You see, as interest and usury both are not an abidance by Christian law or Jewish law. And so the thing is, in this proof, is that any rate of interest, which has to be borrowed back into circulation to maintain a vital circulation, ultimately dispossesses the people of anything and everything. And the only difference is that it takes longer at a lower rate of interest. But they both culminate in the same effect, and they both impose the same crime throughout their entire life cycle. So understanding this, we go through history and we understand, that, many things were attempted, back in the days of the Romans and the Greeks. Copper was considered a precious metal, as we consider gold now. So you had copper money and silver money and gold money, and we've had wooden money and we've had clay money, and we've had, tulips have been used as a medium of exchange. Native Americans used, different items for trade as if they were currency as well, But nowhere do I find there was an exact science of monetization of our wealth. In fact, resorting to trinkets or, metal money is actually a lack of having that resolution. So we can basically speed through all history because we will find nothing significant unless it used, and it basically existed, economy existed as an accounting system which wouldn't have been subject to interest and actually didn't even have to have physical tokens of value which were held and traded themselves. It would just be basically an accounting system, and that's how mathematically perfected economy would probably exist. We could dispense entirely with physical money, So anyway, it gets pretty interesting at the founding of the United States, and I was inadvertently responsible for creating a great stir. You can read in literally millions of websites around the world now how Benjamin Franklin told about a mathematically perfected economy. And that's not true. And the reason that I know it's not true is that idea comes from a lecture that I was invited to attend in 1975. As a special guest, more or less, and I almost didn't go, but I did. And the lecturer, his name was Jacques Walker. He's from Toronto, Canada. He's a fabulous elder gentleman, and he told about a colonial economy, and he quoted Jefferson and Franklin, and so important were the quotes that I memorized them off the top of my head. Now, from ancient history to this time, probably no such thing as true economy ever existed. But yet this story about what other plagiarists have come to call, in my wake, the Pennsylvania currency, was a possible example of mathematically perfected economy. It had some faults.